Okay, yes. Anyone would like to share anything or comment on anything or ask any questions this morning?
Yes. In terms of you given us the direction to, in the application, feel moved by the opponent. And it was really cool because I was like, when I'm coming in, I still have to have that feeling. And it was really interesting, like to feel being moved when I'm the one coming in, like to feel like the opponent's body is actually still moving me as I'm coming in. So it feels like even though I'm coming in, it still feels like I'm being moved, I guess, by the universe, but also by my opponent. And it feels a lot better than like initiating. So it's or like feeling like I'm creating the movement. So I just wanted to share that, and thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. And thank you for sharing that. Yeah, one thing is that when you're ready to be moved, and then you move forward, before you move, you can feel the other person. And as you move forward, you can feel yourself pushing on the other person. And traditionally, it's described as the feeling of the Asian saw going back and forth. And so the Asian saw, like, you primarily pull on it, but it's a two-person saw. And basically, like one person pulls and then the other person follows. And then the other person, when it gets to the end, the other person pulls and the other person follows. It's kind of like a seesaw, actually. And so there is that feeling, but when it's your turn to initiate, that's actually where you kind of get that pulled feeling. But at the same time, you also should have this feeling where not only are you being pulled, but you're actually kind of pressing up against the other person as well. Where when you move, your field is pushing on the other person's field. So you should have that feeling as well. So I just want to make sure that you're not only getting the pull feeling, but you're also getting this feeling that you're pushing on the other person's field.
Thank you. That's really helpful. I did feel that. And I feel like you describing it makes it a lot more clear for me what the experience was. Because that was the kind of weird feeling. It was like I'm both being pulled, but also pushing.
Yes. Yeah. One person described, it was kind of funny, like if you teach this for long enough, it's like you get a lot of interesting descriptions. And one person said, oh, this kind of feels like when you have those mittens for kids that is attached by a string to the neck so that they won't lose it. It's like, oh, it feels like those mittens where when you pull it, it pulls the other arm back and forth. And I was like, oh,
really accurate.
That's really accurate. So anyways,
that's awesome. So, thank you, Master Kim.
You're welcome, and thank you for sharing that and the question. So
thank you.
Okay, welcome. Okay, very good. Okay, so anyone else would like to share anything or ask any questions or comment?
I would.
Yes, please.
I had an interesting experience this morning. I was not feeling great, on waking, and I can't say it was a good practice day in terms of like things flowing, but it was interesting. At some point, I realized I was feeling happy, and I was like, what? And I was like, oh, this must be the unreasonable happiness thing, because I couldn't really account for it. And like my energy wasn't flowing, like there's not a whole lot of pleasure. I didn't have a lot of focus. Those are typically the things that make me feel happy. And so I was kind of wondering what it was, because I know there's got to be some sort of energetic explanation. Because I don't, I don't want that just to be like unconscious
competency. You're like, oh, this is
And-
good. This is like great. How
So,
did I come
but
across
I guess
this?
what I came up with was that I had connected to my spirit body more clearly, and that I was identifying more with that, and that was the experience I was having. And so I'm not sure how I got there, but I could feel it and recognize it, and I felt like, well, that's a start. And wondered if you had anything to say to that, or anywhere else I can explore.
No, that's actually great. That's unreasonable happiness is actually exactly what you felt, where you have, and you can experience unreasonable happiness clearest when you have plenty of reason not to be happy, but then you're experiencing happiness anyways, and it's kind of like, it's almost like you're having a bad day, but the weather is so nice that you can't notice but the beauty of it, and you find yourself enjoying the weather, like the sun being out, and it's like kind of like having that as a backdrop. It's like, that's one of the reasons why unreasonable happiness is like, inner weather, right? And so
yeah
and so when there's enough letting go, and there's enough actually energy flow, then, and when your attention actually is not caught up on the physical things, then, and so if the resistance goes, then you can actually experience that. And what you said is actually correct. If your attention is more on the spirit body than it is on the physical things that are happening, then you will actually start experiencing that unreasonable happiness. Now, more concretely, however, is kind of that, if you will, and it's gonna be one of the following. And if one of the following happens, then you will actually experience it. But as you're going through it, when the unreasonable happiness happened, probably you just found yourself there. And even though not everything was perfect, you'll probably notice that you weren't holding on to anything in particular. And
can you say that last thing again? The sound cut out. You said you just found yourself there, even though
and
everything was not.
Yeah, and you'll notice that you weren't holding on to anything in particular.
Yeah.
Right? But then at the same time, you'll notice that the quality of your attention was good. Like you had an easy focus, meaning as in you didn't feel scattered.
Yeah.
Your mind felt present, conscious. Probably conscious is a good way to say it. It's like, and this is actually one of the reasons why bright light, sunlight makes us happy. We notice it, and it brings an easy focus, and we call it relaxed focus, but we are present, or there's a sense of focus where in focus doesn't mean that you're like focusing on anything, but it just feels you're not distracted. And so you're conscious, and bright things allows us to actually do that more easily. And so it's not necessarily the sunlight itself that makes us happy, but it's actually that non-attached focus, that non-attached presence that allows us to experience happiness. It's like both it's both free. It's both free. Yet at the same time, so there's a letting go or non-attachment, sense of freedom. Yet at the same time, there's this consciousness, this sense of relaxed togetherness, union. And so it's better to understand focus from this place of coming together. So one of the ways you can describe focus is a one-pointedness, they say. But another way to say that is a coming together to a point. And so if you can come together toward a point, there's union. And when there's union, as you come together to a point in a way that's not forced, where there's freedom, then you experience happiness.
Yeah, that sounds about right. It's interesting because the quality of my attention, I wouldn't say it was particularly good because I was like a little scattered, but I think what it was is I had a sense of curiosity and how to say, just riding the waves of whatever I was feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So, or like kind of surrendering to it, letting it be what it was.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because usually, like, I'm looking for something to do with my attention, but I think that's too much effort. Or trying to let my attention kind of wind down, or I'm not sure.
No, this is good.
This connect to what was different,
Yeah, actually, what you're describing and what I'm talking about is actually the same thing. Because if you're not trying to do anything with your attention and you're naturally following, then your attention becomes less divided and it's a natural, relaxed focus. And so you're not forcing anything. You don't have an outcome in mind, but because you're naturally following the flow, there is a sense of awareness that keeps growing and you become more and more together. And it creates more and more of the relaxed focus. And you start feeling more hope because you start naturally learning. So you start seeing a new future based on togetherness. And then that's when you start experiencing more happiness because you start experiencing a future from togetherness. And so, and that gives you more agency, even though things are out of control. That's why letting go is so important. Letting go is like surfing. It's like surfing on the waves. Like, you're out of control, but you're not on the water. And as you get better, you start experiencing more and more freedom and happiness. And so the description of what I was talking about may have sounded a little different, but actually the way you get there, as I said, there's both letting go and that coming together. And happiness is experienced in that sense of union, which is your attention coming together, not feeling scattered. And it doesn't have to be 100%. It has to just get to a point where you feel together enough. And being able to, and you do that by letting go. That's why it has to be relaxed. And when you're relaxed, you're actually surrendering to the flow and following it. And so all the elements of
Mm.
what you're talking about, basically were there. It's one of the reasons
Mm-hmm.
why when you read about it, it's difficult in some ways to get it, because most of the time when you talk about it in one way, but it can actually look in a complete different way.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I had a concept where I needed more energy, or I needed things to be more organized in my system to get there. But what was surprising to me is how it kind of came without it being very far along in the process. Like without things being sorted out very much, without my energy flowing much, without much, with my brain feeling scattered. It was like enough. And then just noticing that happiness coming in at that point was surprising to me. And so I feel like probably some of the tension comes from looking for things to be different, and that the surrender part was missing for me.
Yes,
I think
yes.
if I think back to how I was approaching it, that's probably the piece that allowed it to fall in better
Yes.
today.
Yes.
Like feeling like the waves, feeling literally the pressure of energy on my system, and how it's been kind of impacting me, and feeling it as like something you've mentioned before, like as a massage or something, like
Yes, yes, yes.
being pushed against.
Yes,
And
yes.
being moved, like in the push hands too, like, being moved, being pushed, and going, well, why does that have to be such a bad thing? So
Yes.
yeah, as you're talking, that's like helping me identify that portion. So thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. I think actually that the way you're describing it is actually even better. I think it's actually even better for the audience to listen to you talk about it, because I feel like the way you're talking about it is a lot more relatable. But you're right, actually. How soon a person can actually feel happiness is how soon you can actually surrender. And that's exactly why you push. If you look at actually the foundation of pushing hands, it's not based on you pushing the opponent. It's actually the very beginning is started by someone pushing you, instead of actually you pushing someone else. You actually start by you being pushed, where you learn how to surrender to chaos more and more, where you learn how to yield, where you learn how to follow. And as you do that, as you said, you start realizing, why does it have to be so bad? And actually, as a matter of fact, as you said, following, you start experiencing a certain kind of joy that comes from following. And
Yeah, it seems almost funny. It's like, or like ridiculous. Like I'm being pushed this way. I don't know. That was my feeling. And that's what made me laugh and feel unreasonably happy. It's like,
yes,
kind of ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. And and that when the kind of insights that you have, when these things happen that make you happy beyond this unreasonable happiness, actually also happens where that's when you have your revelations, where you start having realizations, meaning as in you start seeing things that's beyond logic. It comes from your experience, where you literally see the world differently through your experience. And and that's actually how we really learn. That's where real learning comes from. Doesn't come from logic, and logic is a type of learning, and it's actually important. It's a very important learning. But fundamentally, what allows us to actually live a different kind of life is when we have a revelation, or where we have a realization about how to see the world differently, where all of a sudden we are like, then we all have those experiences, life-defining moments where in that one moment we see life differently, and through that experience we're like, oh. And so once you realize that, then you can actually put yourself in that situation where you have those life-altering experiences more and more. And that's one way of doing it. And I think that's actually very important. But then the other one to do it is actually to study what allowed for that. And what allows for that is to surrender. And as you study the nature of surrender, you start having more and more of those experiences. And ironically, that happens by actually, as you experienced this morning, by following and by relaxing. And then while doing so, understanding that what you're looking for is for your attention to feel united, to feel present. And understanding that what allows you to get there is actually, ironically, surrendering and just following. Like, as you said, you were feeling scattered, and then you just allowed yourself to feel scattered. But that was conscious. Can you see that that itself was conscious? When you allowed yourself to be scattered, do you see you were present with your scatteredness? Do you see you became conscious with your scatteredness? Can you see that's union?
Yeah.
You're not resisting your scatteredness. You're not forcing. You're bringing a relaxed focus or presence to your scatteredness. Now you're one with scatteredness. Now, not only did you resist it, but now you joined it. And then now you'll follow it. Now you have even more union. There's even less fight. You're letting it be. It's like riding on a horse and letting it tire itself out. So anyway, so what you experienced today was a joint union, which is what leads to happiness. And
thank you so much. Yeah,
you're welcome. Now, I want to end here. What we need to understand is that we believe that you can be happy in your dying moment. And in your dying moment, you're not going to be jumping up and down with lots of energy. Most likely not. Does it mean that in your dying moment, you can't be happy? Do you need to somehow be victorious to be happy? Do you need things to be perfect to be happy as you're passing? And you can probably intuit that they wouldn't need to be. So Tai Chi is a study of the absolutes, meaning as in like in the extremes, how do you find balance? That's the study. How do you find harmony? How do you find harmony in the extremes? And in the extreme, when things are extremely peaceful, you can find it there. But then how do you also find it when it's least peaceful? How do you find it in places where most people don't expect to find it? And that's a study of Tai Chi, opposite extremes. And it's to find harmony, or if you will, union in those times. And that's the broader premise of Tai Chi. And fundamentally, all Taoist exercises. So if that's the case, if that's the aim, if that's what you're looking for, then if you look at death, so death is a good condition because that's when your body is passing and you're moving on. Your spirit is moving on. So if that is the case, under those conditions, you were to be able to be happy, what would allow you to be happy under those conditions? And that's really the question. Does your energy need to really flow and be all open? If that's the case, if you're dying and that's not, doesn't mean that you have to die a unhappy death. That's ridiculous. So anyways, I just want to end with that.
Yeah, thank you so much for that picture.
You're welcome. Okay. So now I'm done cleaning, so I have to say goodbye today. I'd like to say, happy practicing unreasonable happiness. So have a great
Thank you so much, Mr. Kim.
Oh, welcome.
Thank you, Master Kim.
You're welcome. Welcome.
Thank you, Master Kim.
Welcome. Welcome.